All right, true believers, welcome to another episode of the Freedom to Draw Unsolved Mysteries. I'm your host, John Krupa. Today's case is we're going to look at two teens that went missing on the same year in the same area, just months apart. And then we're going to throw in another girl that upon doing research on these two teens, found out that she only lived a half an hour away from where these two teens disappeared. They all disappeared during the year of 1985. And it's just weird. We're going to compare and we're going to contrast all three of these missing children. I already did one of the Janine Camille Barnwell, so we don't need to draw her, but we are going to draw these two. And we're going to compare and contrast Alan Briscoe and Christine Green and Janine Camille Barnwell all in this episode. We're going to tell you their stories too. Get ready for this episode of the Freedom to Draw Unsolved Mysteries. Alright, so we're gonna draw Alan Briscoe first and tell you a little bit about him. Alan was a young teenager. It was early in the morning. Joanne Briscoe left her home on Friday, December 13th, 1985. So it was Friday the 13th, 1985, when he went missing. She was vaguely aware of the date, Friday the 13th, but as a single mother working two jobs, she didn't have time for superstitious thought. As usual, both of her children were still asleep when she left the house. Both LaTanya, who was 17, and Alan, who had just celebrated his 16th birthday, were students in Bartram High School. And this was in Philadelphia. Since Joanne had to leave for work, both her children had to get up. She would call home around 7:30 a.m. to make sure the two teens were up and getting ready for school. So that's an interesting dynamic here. Basically, we're independent teenagers. Him and his sister LaTanya. When she called home on that morning, however, there was no answer. This was unusual. One of the kids had always answered before. Although she was somewhat concerned, she forced herself to shake it off and go back to work. Joanne called the apartment again around 3:30 p.m. that afternoon, assuming that the kids would have a ride home from school. But once again, there was no answer. Superstitious or not, Joanne was beginning to feel quite uneasy, but forced herself to focus. She was due to start her shift at her second job, and she couldn't afford to miss the shift. So there was a lot of trust going on here that the children would not get into mischief. Well, they were teenagers, but they were young teenagers, so you could still get into mischief. Her children were usually very responsible, but they were only teenagers, and it was likely that they had met up with some friends after school and didn't plan on returning home until later. They knew that Joanne was working 2 jobs in order to make some money for the upcoming holidays and wouldn't be returning home until later that evening. Joanne told herself that the kids were probably just taking advantage of that fact, figuring that as long as they got home before she did, they would have nothing to worry about. LaTanya was less than a year away from turning 18 and becoming a legal adult. Did these two know each other? They both went to the same school. Alan had just turned 16 the week before, and Joanne figured he was just testing to see how far he could go now that he was one step closer to being an adult. Joanne wasn't happy about it, but she was a calm and logical woman. It wasn't her style to scream or shout at her children, but she decided that she would have to talk with Alan when she got home that night. So they both went to the same school. And they said that they did not, well, they said they don't know if they knew each other. They said they're uncertain if the two knew each other or not. But Alan was 16. This girl was 17, I believe. They were not in the same grade. I think he was a year younger, but, I knew kids 2 years younger than me in high school and a year younger. I knew a lot of different, 3 years younger than me. I knew some when I was a junior. That's what she would have been, I think, as a junior, 17. Talking about an inner city school, too. The likelihood of them knowing each other is fairly great, I would say. Joanne finished her shift in her second job and warily made her way home. It was around 11:30 p.m. when she arrived, and she was greeted by an ominous silence. Neither one of her children were home. Joanne could feel herself starting to panic, but She had only been home for a few minutes before LaTanya arrived. She told her mother that she had returned to the house earlier in the evening, but the door was locked and Alan had been the one holding the keys that day. She wasn't sure where her brother was, so he had gone to a relative's home and waited there until she knew her mother would be home from work. Joanne and her daughter waited anxiously for Alan to get home. There was no sign of him. In a panic, Joanne began calling her friends and family to help her search for her son. Neighbors joined in the search effort as well, and soon there were dozens of people scouring the area for any signs of the missing teenager. They searched for him the entire night without success. As the sun came up, there was still no sign of Alan, and Joanne called the police to report him missing. This kid basically vanished in 1985. You're going to see, and by the end of this, is that he's not the only kid to vanish in 1985 during this timeline. Another thing to compare these kids they were all kids. They were all black kids. And they all disappeared during the day. Even Janine Camille Barnwell, she disappeared in the daytime. And they all came from not your normal households. They all had like circumstances going on in each one of their households, as I will point out. You will see. Okay, that's what Alan looked like. Detectives arrived and began interviewing everyone who knew Alan, trying to determine when and where he had been seen last. The investigators soon learned that Bartram High School had an early dismissal the previous day. While Joanne had been worried that Alan may have skipped school, detectives spoke to people who had seen him at the high school, so it seems that he attended at least some of his scheduled classes that morning. He and a friend had left school together, and the friend told the police that they spent most of the day riding around on the Philadelphia subway system. Eventually, they had gotten bored with that, so they decided to take a bus back to their own neighborhood. Although both boys initially planned to go home, Alan ended up getting off the bus at Woodland Avenue, telling his friend that he wanted to visit a female who lived nearby. His friend watched as Alan exited the bus and began walking up the street, but quickly lost sight of him when the bus continued on its way. It was the last confirmed sighting of Alan. Now, this girl here, Christine Green, people could infer that maybe the female was Christine Green that he wanted to visit, but there's only one problem with that theory, is that Christine Green disappeared on April 23rd of 1985, and Alan Briscoe disappeared December 13th, 1985. So Christine Green was already missing. But you can pose this theory, is that maybe the person that took Christine, if she got taken, we have no idea, but this is just theory. Maybe the person that took Christine was a female and knew Alan and told him, hey, I got somebody I want you to meet over here. She's your age, she's cute. And he had known this lady, and maybe that's how she got him to come to her house. And then Alan met with foul play, and Christine may have been there, but she may have been bait for this abduction to happen, because this kid just vanished. He went to the same high school as this girl, and they were both black. So was Janine Camille Barnwell. Save big on better sleep at Raymore. So this is what Alan Briscoe would look like if he was around presently. So that's up there what he looked like when he was a kid, and this is what he could look like now. Age progression photo of him. It's a complete mystery on how Alan disappeared. Was there a team of a guy and a girl luring these kids in Philadelphia in 1985? And have like a Bonnie and Clyde thing going on here? We don't know, but it's really odd that these three went missing all in the same year. Janine Camille Barnwell, like I said, I did a show on her. I will add that show in the description and the comments of this video, so check out that. It's an odd coincidence that Janine was, she lived a half an hour, but these two live right near Bartram High School. But it's not out of the possibility that someone that lived near Janine could hop in a car. It's only a half an hour distance from where she disappeared. I did some research. I did some map investigations, and that's what I came up with. They were all within driving distance of each other, not within walking distance, within driving distance. So if they got abducted, they most likely were abducted by someone that drove. On to Christine Green now. The way this case had been categorized will differ depending on what database or report you look at. Some list 16-year-old Christine Green as a runaway. Okay, so she was 16, but I think they were not in the same grade, though. While others have had her as an endangered missing person. But one thing can be agreed upon is that she was last seen on April 23rd, 1985. It was approximately 8 a.m. when Christine left her home in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and made her way from her residence on Greenway Street to Woodland Avenue trolley. The teen was scheduled to attend Bartram High School that day, but reportedly never arrived. It was unlike Christine not to arrive at school. She was noted as being a good student, and investigation would uncover that she didn't have a habit of being late or absent. So, for her to disappear without notice caused serious concern. So it's unclear if these two knew each other or not. But Bartram High School was an inner city school, and it was probably pretty large, so I would say it's 50-50 if they actually knew each other. The odds are 50-50. Christine's mother was reportedly ill and bedridden at the time. Again, like I said, strange circumstances at home, not your normal circumstances at home, and was said to have been close with her daughter. The teen was one of 8 children, and according to all accounts, Christine had great relationships with all her siblings as well as her parents. It isn't usual for rumors and gossip to circulate when a teenager goes missing, and Christine Green wasn't any different. There was speculation that she had run off after learning she was pregnant, but none of that could be substantiated. Sadly, this is why many young black teens continue to be registered as runaways even decades after they have gone missing. Adding to the air of mystery and disappearance of 16-year-old Alan Briscoe, another student at Bartram High School. Alan reportedly went missing in December 85, 8 months after Christine vanished. According to reports, Alan was seen at school on the day, but it was reported that the high school closed early. Authorities claim that Alan and a friend rode the subway around Philly before making their way back to their neighborhood bus. He was reportedly last seen getting off a bus before telling the person he was with that was on his way to see a friend who was a girl. There have been theories about these two cases being connected, but I could not come across specific information to confirm that. Authorities do not believe that Alan was a runaway. At the time of her disappearance, Christine Green stood 5 foot tall and weighed 90 pounds. See how that article inferred that he was going to see a girl, but the numbers don't, the dates and the numbers don't match up. They don't match up. If it was the same day they both disappeared, that would be even more crazy. And so you don't know if these two cases were connected, but I want to guess and say that they did know each other. And if they did know each other, there's a more likelihood that these cases are connected. But if they didn't know each other, it's just a really eerie coincidence. third girl that went missing, Janine Camille Barnwell, she was only 3 years old, so she did not attend this Bartram High School, but her case could be connected to these two. It might be a stretch, but you never know. Here is an age progression photo of what Christine would look like. These cases may not be related. It just seems odd that they were black. They lived in Philadelphia, and they were all kids. And they all went disappearing and never seen again in the same year. None of them have ever been seen again. Was there a team, a duo, that was going around abducting young black kids? I don't know. But it's worth bringing to light and doing a show about it. If anything, we could bring these cases back into the public eye. At the time of the disappearance, Christine stood 5 foot tall and weighed 90 pounds. She had black, dark brown hair and dark brown eyes. In '84, Christine had her left kidney removed, resulting in a surgical scar on the left flank. It was also reported that if she were to develop a fever, she would have been in need of medication. She was last seen wearing a pink blouse, blue vest, jeans, and black shoes. Her dental records and fingerprints are not on file, but her DNA is on record. Christine's nicknames are Dinky or Tina, and Alan's nicknames were Squeak. She would be 52 years old at the time of this publication. Anyone with information about this case is urged to contact the Philly Police Department. And there's the number right there. If you look to the right of your screen, agency case number is right here, 851-202-4179. There's the number. So the contrast of these three are, they may not have known each other. I'm positive the Barnwell girl didn't know these two. And the Barnwell girl lived half an hour from where these two went to high school. And it is unknown where Alan lived. I could not find that, but it told me where Christine lived, and it told me where Janine Barnwell lived. And I looked on the map, and they are within driving distance of each other. But where Alan was last seen is also within driving distance of all three of these kids. So, the contrast is they may not have known each other. The comparisons, though, are really eerie. Was someone just abducting young black kids in the 1980s? Will we ever know, guys? I don't know, but stay tuned, true believers. We will update you on any breaking updates on any of these cases. Check out my show on Janine Camille Barnwell. It will be in the description and comments of this video. Guys, peace out, true believers. That's it. Till the next time we meet. Peace out.